dear friends, to another exciting episode, because I am building a Luminescent Epizoescope. I've remembered the name. Brilliant. This is part 2. Now, I'm still waiting for the actual digital photo frame to arrive. I think I've ordered the same one as before, but I'm not going to start building too much until I can actually check it is the right size. So, what we've done so far is we've built the bellows. Oh, that was a joy, remembering how to crease all the corners, because the bellows, and here's one I prepared earlier, goes there. The photo screen goes in there, and I can't really do very much. What I've built so far is this, the back bit, all the woodwork for the back that supports all the gears and everything. So I've got to wait, and I was thinking, what can I do? And it's one of those, because it's quite, everything is interlinked. I was thinking, well, I could do that. No, I can't do that till I could do that. And I can't do that because it hasn't arrived yet. And I can't, etc., etc. So what I thought I'd do is this bit. It's the flickering candle effect that boils the water that drives the juices steam, etc., etc. So this is what they look like, these amazing little modules. They've got an electromagnet in the bottom of them that flicks on and off, and you can see when this one flicks on and off because it dims the LED. Hopefully that's because I haven't got proper wire soldered on, but it reflects. It's got an LED just down there that projects up onto this flickering flame effect, and it is so realistic. It's amazing. So I need to mount that in some sort of enclosure like this that I've sprayed the cast iron effect, which does look lovely. Now it's got this bottom bit with rivets around it, and in the past I was using a fitting such as this perfectly good fitting, 42mm or whatever it's called, just cutting off the end to make a little ridge that goes around some of the 42mm pipe. What a waste, I tells you. And then I looked on my drawings for this Epizoescope, and I haven't got any reference to these pieces or that at all anywhere. So I thought, right, good time for some drawing, because I can make this bottom bit with the rivets on. Beep, 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 beep. Little copper rivets, no expense spared, out of a piece of 10mm thick laser cut acrylic, which I can then also laser engrave part the way through for the end of the tube to sit on. Drill a load of holes around the outside and hopefully rough the right place, and then stick the rivets in. That'll be great. And there's also a little flange that goes on the top of this, because otherwise, as you can see, the light shines through. I've also got to paint this black and do some other bits and pieces. So here's the design. If you zoom in, you can see where I want it engraved, not all the, well, engraved rather than cut all the way through. 0.125mm apart, lots of lines, and there's a very handy tool there on 2D design that allows you to do that. So let's get that cut out and see what happens. I've got to make somewhere for the wires to go, so let's just add an engraving to do that, hopefully. So let's just see whether that fits. Oh yes, beautiful. It's beautiful, it tells you. We've got a hole in the bottom for the copper pipe to take the wires in, and a little bit that's now engraved to take the wires to the contacts on the candle, which is so let's drill lots of holes around the outside to put the rivets in. If only I had a dividing head, but I haven't, so I'm going to use some masking tape, a ruler and a biro. Actually, I need to paint the inside of this, like I said. It just pulls apart, isn't that lovely? Just some pins that aren't even glued. There's the flame, teach a little magnet in the bottom of it, a little bent piece of wire that suspends the flame. And there we are, there's the big orange LED, and the little coil, and a very small little semiconductor thing that must do the pulsing. Who needs a dividing head when you have some masking tape and a multiplying head? I've realised I knew my 12 times table. How amazing. Let's get drilling. I always love the way that pillar drills are so versatile. Lovely, we're ready to glue little copper rivets in. There we are, so that's lovely. I don't keep the copper rivets copper, they're just ones I happen to have in stock, because they all need to be sprayed up, and if you spray the outside and then try and glue them in, the glue will go everywhere and it'll be a hideous mess. Right, now I need to cut, I'm going to start at the top and work down. I need to cut this funny angle, and I remembered that the top of the sanding machine, because obviously I've taken the guard off, yes, works perfect. It's the right sort of radius. So I've just been slowly, well, this way round because of the direction of the belt, slowly filling the room with little bits of black plastic. And I think I've got it right now, so I'm very pleased with that. Because now I've got that shape done, I can now cut out the hole through which the candle is viewable. X marks the spot. I have used my eyes and my hands and my coordination to mark that out. Funnily enough, the hole is 38mm diameter and I have a 38mm hole saw. Slow it down, you say? No, I will repeat my mantra, this could all go horribly wrong. But hopefully not. Actually, I'm not going to hold it there. Lovely. It didn't go all horribly wrong. We have a hole. Look, dear friends, I've glued it down. It was a catch-22 painting situation type thing, and I thought, just get on with it. So I've stuck that down, stuck a bit of 5mm that I cut out on the laser cutter on, painted that with a bit of paper, a little paper tube over the flame. Now I'm going to glue that over there, and then paint all the outside. Lovely. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to start cutting out all these twiddly things out of 10mm acrylic, which does take a long time because it's going at 1.4mm a second and hopefully not setting fire to anything, hence the cardboard underneath. But all those bits make up all these supports for the bearings and gears and pulleys and wheels and springs, and oh, what's joy, and the governor, of course. The cast iron paint I'm using is Rust-Oleum cast iron paint. It's ever so good and it dries really quickly, which is amazing. Cast irony, lovely. And so the paint's drying. The 10mm acrylic is very slowly cutting out. What am I going to do? Well, I think I'm going to turn down some M8 bolts, because the feet there and there and to the other side are actually made from M8 bolts, which I had floating around when I was building the original one. So what I'm going to do is just to put them in the lathe and turn down the heads so they get rid of the hex parts. I haven't used the lathe for ages. I can see that because it's clean. It's not going to stay that way for very much longer. Here's a bolt afterwards with lovely smooth sides, and I've faced off the front. I suppose what I can do now is to make the housing for the motor. There's the lovely brushed motor, the type that you used to find in cassette players and things. And here's a lovely 42 or 3mm plumbing fitting. A stop end, so you can access things if you want to rod drains and stuff. Waste pipes. I've drilled the holes in the end and I've just realised this all stands out too much, so I've got to saw that down and saw that down. So that needs to be 8mm thick. I've set this up accordingly. And now I'm going to try and not saw my fingers off. I've always felt, and I've heard lots of people say, that as long as you hold things really rigidly and you know where your fingers are, yeah. Lovely. Still got all my digits. I'll get that cleaned up. There's just enough thread there to fit on the front. I've just noticed a lovely juxtaposition between that machine. That machine, just in line, lots of brass and copper and things. Oh, lovely. How long to cut it? 51 minutes and 32 seconds. Let's see what we've got. lovely, look at that. I put cardboard underneath because with it at 40%, which is sort of full power, if it's 10mm, there's still enough laser left over to set fire to things underneath, whereas a piece of cardboard just soaks up. Also, it sometimes reflects it a bit, so you get a radiused edge on the bottom. Isn't this lovely? Lots and lots of exciting parts to sand down, get nice and smooth, and assemble. Yes. And whilst doing that, I'm watching Chernobyl yet another time. It is such a good series because it's not condescending about the science or anything, and it follows obviously 1986's disaster, and it is terrifying because it brings it all home to you, what it was actually like for those involved, for those who are responsible, for families affected. It's absolutely amazing. I think it's Sky, I'm watching on Prime because I bought it, but it is available. I can recommend it. Get your money's worth, especially if you like watching something cheerful. Look at all these exciting pieces of acrylic structures and mechanisms. Ooh, look, there's more there. This is something I've finally got around to drawing, and I'm about to turn down out of some aluminium. It's this bit that holds a bearing in each end so that can rotate. I've measured it and everything because it needs to fit in these two holes and be locked in place once it's glued together, because it's a stupid idea. And I'm just remembering what a joy it is to work with aluminium. Oh, isn't that lovely? So I'm just going to do some turning and drilling and I'll get back to you. So there's the drawing and here's the thing. How lovely. I really enjoyed turning that up. I think when I used aluminium before, my tools were all blunt because I hated it, but this time it's beautiful and shiny. It's another day and I'm cutting out some more 10mm thick stuff. It's amazing how quickly I get through it once I get started. Also, coincidentally, this morning I got an order for some of those shell lamps. Titchy little ones. Here are the big ones. I think they're 45mm that I designed for the, whoops, Is It Time for Tea machine, and then lots of people showed interest. So I've got sort of 1 watt or something LED, warm white in it. They're nice. The wonders of 3D printing shininess. But then there are these ones. That's 25mm high. And I've managed to make loads of these little LEDs with resistors. In fact, I'd completely forgotten that I'd made these. It's a lovely treat. Looking in the drawer and finding I'd got all them made up. And I'm printing these little ones. It's a slightly newer design, with just a rebate inside that the LED glues into. So that's lovely. That's 20mm if it's a day. Right, my next job is to start assembling all these pieces. I'm gluing them together, but I've got some machining to do first. Let's go on with that. These are my favourite bearings of choice. So useful. 4mm diameter hole in the middle, 13 outside, 5 deep. Absolute joy. So what you need is a 13mm diameter hole to fit them in, like that one that I drilled earlier. So I need to start drilling holes for these bearings in lots of bits of plastic. So I've set the depth stop on the pillar drill just near the bottom because I want to push the bearing in and not have it fall out the other side, if you see what I mean. I've got the hole drilled first, so let's... Oh, if I have a camera on, my fingers always get in the way. Isn't that lovely? And I've found constantly that if you laser cut a hole, the drill will absolutely perfectly line up. So now we've got a nice little rebate for the bearing and a ridge at this end to stop it falling out. I'm now constructing this bit. It's got a bearing in the bottom, a bearing in this bit that holds this vertically. There's a worm drive in there, a Meccano one in there, and the other little wheel, the gear thing, like this. Gear. Right, there's the worm drive, there's the gear thing. But, thing is, I need to make sure these are glued down, glued together absolutely vertically. How to do that? Another of my beloved jigs. This one is just a piece of wood, nice hard beech, with a vertical hole and a rod, 5mm rod stuck up the middle. I can't tell you how useful it is. So I've put a bearing in the bottom of this bit. I've got a bearing pushed in the top. If I sit that on there, glue that on there, I know those two will be absolutely vertical. Thank you. I need to spray some more stuff up, and I forgot that was still standing there 2 days later. Look, isn't that cast iron paint wonderful? It really is so speckledy as well. It's wonderful. No, there's the candle. It just looks so realistic. That's amazing. It's lovely the way that you get the sort of flickering effect on the back of the tube. Very pleased with that. Very pleased as well to have come up with a better way of making that bottom, but without wasting a whole plumbing fitting. Lovely. They're coming on a treat. These are all the ones that I've now machined, sanded, finished, drilled, because obviously with a laser cutter you can only cut it out in one direction, something like that, and I need holes drilled in all sorts of different directions. So that's nice. Oh, aren't they lovely? It's getting more and more exciting as these are all getting finished. Ooh, now I'm going to paint them all, but first some more stuff to cut out. It's the nip cow disc type arrangement from the back. But this time, dear friends, I've left the protective film on, because this one, which is I think the nip cow disc, you can see on the original here, and this one's got a ring of clear lens type effects on the back. So by cutting this out and slightly cutting all these shapes, I can now peel off this protective film, spray it all up, and then peel anyway. You get the drift. I'm waffling again. I've got 6 of these little things to make up. There's 2 on that linkage, well 3 actually at the bottom. There's 4, and then there's 2 more, that's right, at the top of the governor, and they're quite nice to make. So this is the bit the laser cutter cuts out, and I'm going to drill out that hole properly to 3mm with precision. I also know I need to drill a hole in from the end so that I can then support it and use it when it's linking to things, so that I can then cut a slot in the other end on the bandsaw. How terribly exciting and potentially dangerous. However, I have made lots of these. Fingers crossed, tempting fate here. So far, I haven't had any explode, shatter or anything else. Watch this space. So the first thing I've done is to fix 2 of them into the vise, and now I'm going to try and work out how not to get my hand in the way. So we now have a hole in the end. That's handy. Now I was using a piece of 3mm copper rod to support these because it's soft and won't damage my bandsaw blade. Actually I wasn't. I've just realised that sounds really clever. I just picked up the nearest bit of metal I could find. I thought it was brazing rod, which has mild steel in the middle, so I'm very pleased it was copper. I thank you. Right, 6 more exciting parts. Here's the big gear, and here's the part that needs to fix onto the middle. I did it like this because there's another gear, this one, that is also 10mm, safe plastic cut out of the middle. Makes it all a little bit more imaginative as well. So anyway, I'm going to fix that on by drilling and tapping. Well, I've got the laser cut holes, which is perfect for these drill taps because it'll guide them through, especially if I go the right way around. And I'll dip it in isopropyl alcohol, which cools it and lubricates it. And look, dear friends, we have a threaded hole, M4. Isn't that lovely? So I can countersink these 5 holes on that bit and then use countersunk M4 screws like these ones. It is very handy having something to look at. Lovely. Oh, missus. What could this be? I think it might be the photo screen. I'll get it unwrapped and we'll have a look. Well, it says it displays every perfect moment, so that's nice. So many perfect moments No, I'm not going to rush opening it. I just want to see whether this is actually the same as the existing one. Brilliant! It works. I've just put an SD card in the back and plugged it in, and it's read all the files, the video files. It's playing them with sound automatically without me having to touch anything. Oh, fantastic. So there's the back of the original one. Yeah, the label's very similar to the last one. I always remember it because it's 12 volts at between 1 amp to 3 amps. The original said 1000 to 3000 milliamps. I have no idea because I seem to remember checking it with a multimeter and it was less than half an amp. So I don't know, perhaps this is a generic label to go on anything. I think what I'll do is just to shrink the frame down, the whole thing. I think before I didn't realise, and I'd cut all this out and then I had to make another separate wooden insert or something. Enough talking, let's get on with the designing. I found the drawing of the front, so what I'm going to do, because I've discovered that it is 8mm lower. So I think the best thing to do is for me just to slice the middle bit, keep everything else as it is. So I'm going to use one of my favourite tools, which is to delete between lines. Isn't that lovely? So I can delete all those. Where are we? And then just sort of shrink it all down. I will get that done, and then I've also, at this side, got the lovely one, so I need to cut this down, cut the middle out of this as well. I'll get that done. That's so lucky, well, actually it's not luck, that I can cut all these out of the 300mm high pieces of ply. So if we look at this, yes, that's better, I think. Lovely. Can it get much more exciting? Yes, it can. Here's the adapted, altered, edited front panel that's going to be brass colour. Hopefully it's going to fit with all the holes and things. And here's the wonderful laser cutter engraving the letters at low power so it doesn't go all the way through, which does look rather nice. Lovely. Whilst all that's cutting out, I spray painted this aluminium bit that I turned yesterday with primer, metal primer, because I seem to remember that aluminium is not good for painting on because it provides or forms that layer of oxide immediately. But look, that's going to go in there. I do it with two hands when you can struggle. I'll get that in there anyway, you get the idea. So I can glue that together, and that's ready for painting brass then. So I think the next one I'm going to do is to finish the woodwork, because I don't want to make too much dust while I'm thinking about ways of avoiding spray painting everything. Just putting it off, because yes, that makes perfect sense. So we're going to build this frame. Now I know it is the right size to fit around the picture frame thing. I've also cut out this, and this piece is going to be glued on the back, so I can then screw that onto the back of the bellows. Now, have I got all the holes in the right place for the adjusted design? Let's line them up and fingers crossed. Yes, the holes line up. Top and bottom, and even those three little holes for the gauge line up. Oh, lovely. I can work out what most of these parts are for, but they're pretty obvious. That's nice. I have absolutely no idea what these bits are for. There's 6 of them. I don't know. There's little notches in them that make it look like they need to fit inside something and have room for glue. I have no idea. How exciting. I look forward to discovering that. It's not as complicated as the back frame, because I've got the ply cut out for the front, so I've been able to mitre these and then just fix them, line them up carefully, fix them down, etc, etc. Time to take the dog out. Someone said they hadn't seen Ziggy for a while. I hadn't been including her in the videos. I do apologise. There she is. Yes! And it's time for a walk. It doesn't get much better than that. The tail's going, Oh, fantastic. I think taking Ziggy for a walk is probably a good time to stop this video. It's probably about 25 minutes long. Lovely. Next time, making all sorts of exciting mechanisms and things. Hope to see you then. Thanks again for watching.